let's see if you can figure out whether this sentence requires commas or not and why. So here's the example. All right, so there you have it. Pause the video if you would like to and try to determine if this sentence requires any commas. If so, why? Or is it fine as it is? Go ahead. Okay. The new teacher who had struggled to get the students' attention managed to captivate her audience with an experiment. Here we go. So we do actually require commas in this sentence, which means that it does include a parenthetical. Can you see where? Right here. This is a parenthetical phrase. Why is it a parenthetical phrase? Well, it's a non-restrictive clause that adds more information to the main clause. The main clause, of course, being that the new teacher managed to captivate her audience with an experiment. Now, to see why that might be, consider if it were the opposite. Consider that this were a restrictive phrase that identified a specific new teacher. The new teacher who had struggled, in particular, to get the students' attention. That was the one who managed to captivate her audience with an experiment. Well, that might suggest that the writer is speaking in a context where a bunch of new teachers have just been hired, and there is one new teacher in particular who was struggling to get students' attention, and all of the other teachers were not struggling to get the students' attention. Whereas it makes more sense to assume here that this is the sort of context in which the writer, or the reader rather, already understands which new teacher we're referring to. And so if the reader can already be expected to know what new teacher, and that we're not saying one particular one out of a host or a whole group of new teachers that were all hired at the same time, which would be kind of weird. If that specifically isn't happening, then we're talking about a specific person already, and therefore the phrase that I've underlined adds additional information. It's not a restrictive or defining phrase. It is something extra. We could break this up into two sentences. We could say something like, I suppose, there was a new teacher who struggled to get the attention of the students, but that teacher managed to captivate her audience with an experiment. And so if we're putting them together, of course, we're using this phrase here to add additional information, which means it's a parenthetical, which means that we need 2 commas to mark it out. So I hope that made sense to you. If not, be sure to leave me a question in the comments section. So that's all for this video, and I think that will conclude our discussion on commas for now. Unless you'd like me to cover a little bit more, just let me know. In the next video, we'll talk about another common grammatical mistake. And that mistake is called, or that topic is called, subject-verb agreement. This is something also that students can get wrong often, as with comma usage, and we'll talk about that next. I'll see you there.